Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Smart Catholics show. It's an opportunity to take a moment and chat about cool things, cool people, people who are doing interesting things or producing new things. And we have with us Allison Gingras, who is just publishing a brand new book. You can see it right over her shoulder, Encountering Signs of Faith. It's an unexpected journey with Sacramentals, the saints, and the abundant grace of God. Welcome, Allison. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited to talk about the book and all the things that go with this beautiful journey that God put me on in that book.
I'm only about halfway through reading it, and what I love is it's not just a manual of, here's how to think about sacramentals and the different kinds that are out there, but it's such a personal journey. And as you and I were chatting a moment ago, there's two paths, two stories going through this that's threading it all together. There's your own personal journey into grace and God, and maybe grappling with anxiety, and then also the story of your little one coming to join you out of China. So,
Yes.
well, all right, we'll get into all of that. For those who haven't yet met or heard of Allison, she is a deacon's wife and a seasoned mom of three. She is a Catholic new media consultant working with Catholic Mom, Family Rosary, and the Fall River Diocese. She hosts A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, a podcast, and is blessed to be a co-host of the Catholic Mom Momcast. And as of now, her new book is available for pre-order. How many books have you written now, Allison?
This is my number 3 on my own, but I've been blessed. Actually, one of the books I contributed to and was an editor on just won a Catholic Press Association Award honorable mention in a group prayer book. And another one that I contributed to for Ave Maria Press won third prize. So I can call myself an award-winning author.
I was going to say, drop the mic, and there we go.
Right? I need to update my bio. Award-winning author.
Yeah, award-winning author. Well, tell us about this book then. What was the inspiration for Encountering Signs of Faith? How long have you been working on it?
I adopted my daughter 12 years ago, so I guess technically 12 years. So the name of Encountering Signs of Faith is actually a really cute play on words that Ave Maria came up with. My daughter is deaf, and we communicate with her with American Sign Language, so signs, and her name is Faith. So it took all the faith in the world I had with a woman with anxiety to go all the way to China and bring home a child with special needs. The other side of this was in teaching faith, I call her Faithy in the book just because we call her Faithy here, but just to be not so confusing talking about faith and faith. So I'll refer to her from here on in as Faithy. That's my daughter. In teaching Faithy about the Catholic Church, about the Catholic faith, I realized that she had no language. So I had to use tangible signs. I had to use images and sacramentals and all the amazing, beautiful things, the beauty of our church. In doing so, I learned more about my church, my faith. I fell more deeply in love with the Catholic faith, and I wanted that story to be told. And I wanted her story to be told too, because I think as I start the book, I say we all have an adoption story. I start the book saying, what's this book about? Well, it's an adoption story. And most people would read that and go, yeah, I'm not really into adoption. It's not for me. And then I remind us all, we all are part of an adoption story. As baptized Christians, we are part of God's family. We are adopted into to God's family. So we all have this beautiful journey. And that's what I wanted to share.
It's beautiful. In what I loved in some of the early chapters was how tangible you take things. And I'm sure it was very intentional, but I loved how you described picking up the miraculous medal and feeling it and touching it, and it reminded me of me doing that too. And it's nice because it helps ground the faith.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this in a little bit, this sense of adopting a more tangible faith, but I resonated with what you're doing because years back, and when I lived in Australia, we started taking sign language as a family, so it was a cool point of resonance with you. So I'm curious now to then talk about that, like we're just talking about the, sharing these sacramentals with your little one, and then using that to you yourself reflect on what these things mean and how we should engage with them and incorporate them into spiritual life and practice. you have this cool little line where you say these things are mystical, not magical. Could you explain why you use those words?
Well, I think that when I first came back to, I'm a revert to the faith, and when I first came back to the faith, I thought like if I rubbed my, if I had this miraculous medal and I just rubbed it like a lucky foot, right? Like good magical things would happen. But that is not at all what God intends with them. They're to prepare our hearts and our minds to receive the grace of the sacraments. In fact, the working title of the book is kind of funny. You keep saying, Dominic, tangible, because the working title was Tangible Graces. So that's kind of funny. I'm glad that that was seen, because that was clearly my intent. And I think, too, when I first came back to the church, I thought, if I follow God and do all the list of the things I'm supposed to do, right? Go to church, pray my rosary, go to confession, do all the churchy things, that nothing bad will happen to me. In fact, I will be blessed upon abundance because I'm doing all the good Catholic godly things. And that isn't at all, again, what God has for us. He has much more than that for us. Mystical means it's beyond our understanding. This is the unfathomable God that we try to put in a little human box, and we can't do that. But he knows that we are humans with this carnal body that he gave us, that sees and hears and smells and touches. So we need tangible proof, tangible evidence of the God of the universe, and he provides that in abundance, especially, I think, through the Catholic Church.
Absolutely. It's such a sacramental faith. I love the use of the phrase. We're gifted the blessing of matter, and God has been using that since the beginning. So to keep sort of trying to unsheath ourselves from being in matter, the Catholic Church goes the other way. No, no, no. Bread and wine and oil and salt and sacramentals. You've even set out the book. It follows a format with every chapter. Could you speak to that?
Yes. Each chapter kind of tells the story a little bit, kind of invites you in to get to know the story better. But with all books, especially through Ave Maria, I love that their formula, I guess, for lack of a better word, for getting people into spiritual reading is that you should get something from it. Like, it should make you think. So it has discussion questions. I'm very much into the scriptures. My whole faith um, really bloomed and exploded when I discovered the scriptures and started to read them and spend time with them. So I connect the sacramental and the story to the scriptures. I invite you in to think about the scripture further in your own life, in your own story, because we all, again, not only do we have adoption stories, but we all have sacramental stories. And I really wanted people to spend time with the sacramental, is more so than the story, so they can see where God is revealing himself to them. And there's also activities at the end. So the families who are trying, like I was, to teach my child the faith would have their own tangible ways of bringing the faith to their child, or just for themselves. Like, not all these activities are family based. They're just there's about 3 of them for each sacramental that just helps you go deeper into knowing what the sacramental is, and not just about the knowledge of it. And I include saint sidebars too. And both of these things, I didn't want the typical, oh, the saint was born, they died, they did this. Like, I really wanted you to know more about the saint. Same thing with the sacramental. I didn't want you just to be like, well, this is how you pray it, this is where you pray it. No, I wanted you to encounter more, deeper, to find your own mystical experience with the saint and with the sacramental, because that's what I discovered. And like, just trying to, like, I want you all to have this.
Understanding the point, the purpose of the thing, and not just the checklist.
Yes,
one of the things that I
exactly.
loved was in learning to speak in sign language and then communicating to her, you had to adopt new phrases, or maybe you were transmitting other phrases, but it was a different language, which means things are thought of in new ways, and you've incorporated that into the story, and that also opened up scriptural moments, like you described Pilate and Christ during the Passion, or how to talk about these sacramentals to Faithy, really did change that as well for you.
I learned how to interpret the Mass. Talk about we can talk a little bit about Godsidence. I know that you like that word. It's one of my favorites. I made it up years ago. I know other people have used it, but it came from my brain. So you're all welcome. No.
Trademark.
Trademark. I totally need to do that. But one of the things that happened was I met this deaf priest, and like during the adoption process, and he said, if it comes through, if you get this child, because at the time, it was the Lord calling me to adopt and telling me in prayer that she would be deaf, but I hadn't yet been matched with a child who wasn't indeed deaf or hard of hearing. So I had met this priest through, again, people would think it was coincidence. I know God was lining up my life like he does, because he's so amazing. He is an awesome God, as the song says. And this priest said, if your child comes home, I want to help you. I want to help you learn how to bring her the Mass. So I ended up going to World Youth Day with him in the Deaf Apostolate of Boston, learning how to sign the Mass. He did one-on-one tutoring with me, and
Wow.
I learned the pieces of the Mass, but it was not until Good Friday, when I was interpreting the Passion, that I
Okay.
really understood the beauty of having language, physical language on your hands that you could see, and telling the story of the Passion. The gospel reading was just amazing, just a whole new insight for me on what the scriptures mean. And I tell the entire story in the book, sign for sign.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. In a similar way, this past month, I've been learning about how the Our Father, for example, is prayed in Aramaic, and
Oh, wow.
how English is wonderful, but it's completely flattened. It's an inability to understand multiple levels of meaning that are just taken for granted for those who speak Arabic and Aramaic. In that same way, learning another language, and that's what you're bringing. So I'm also curious, as you're then learning the language of sacramentals over the last 10 years, 12 years. You had mentioned that, I thought it was funny, this you said you might earn a gold medal in anxiety. And I could empathize with that so much because of just up and downs of life and so on.
Oh.
How have the sacramentals been shall we say, a school for you to learn how to master that, or to sit with that, or to work with that?
Many of the sacramentals come with promises, and it's the actual promises that give me such peace. Like, I easily lose my peace, and the quote I have in the book is, if you could medal in worrying, I would be a gold medalist. And I've had anxiety my whole life, and I never knew how to deal with it. Like, I did all the things that are good for you. Like, I went to counseling. For a time I needed medication for it, but I knew that I was missing something, because I knew what gave me anxiety. I knew that it was often things that related to death or being sick. I knew that these were some of my trigger points. Well, how do I deal with that? And nothing else in the world offered me the promises that God does. Like, I don't know what happens beyond this world, but God does. And no one else was giving me that hope that of the resurrection, the hope of his loving embrace, the hope of, one of the reasons I wear my miraculous medal is that the Blessed Mother, actually my scapula.
Your
Promises for
Catholic is
both.
showing.
Yes. I wear a metal one now, but I used to wear, the cloth one. And what Dominic is saying is, in the book, I say that people would always tell me to tuck in my bra and be like, no, it's just my Catholic showing. But I loved the sacramental, because the Blessed Mother told Simon Stock that anyone who dies wearing this sacramental would be spared from the fires of hell. Now, if you're a person with anxiety, this is a very, very good promise to hang your hat on or wear your scapular for. And so it was things like that, discovering God's promises again and again and again in all of these different practices of our faith, that really helped me get control for the first time in my life over my anxiety. I'm not saying I'm cured. I'm still an anxious person, but I know where to turn now, the different scriptures and different sacramentals, even just holding on to, these things that wear around my neck that remind me tangibly I am not alone, that God is with me all the time, in every moment, and in every situation.
Mm-hmm. Is there I mean, it's always a timely topic, but do you see that there's a loss of sacramentals today, um, such that, like, how do I? What's the question here? I mean, most people, like, going to mass and so on, there's kind of the rote use of holy water walking in, maybe there's a little genuflection and so on, and these habits, these activities, I think we've forgotten why they're important, what they mean. And maybe you travel back to the old world, we think about um, parents' generations, they had all these little habits and things that they would just do, but they'd be checklists and so on. And I see a book like this being, it's such an intimate invite into your journey, but then also it lays out how they can start discovering their own. I like the way that you named it, like a mystical engagement or encounter. And I'm curious. I think some people are afraid of the word mystical, in that maybe they don't know what it means, or it's I don't know. How would you define that? I think you did a little earlier, but I'd like to come back and wrap with that.
It's supernatural, right? Like that's that word that kind of goes hand in hand with mystical, and people get, oh, we don't want the supernatural. No, God, anything supernatural is beyond nature, beyond the nature of the world we live in. God is supernatural, and the beautiful things that He offers us. And you said earlier, maybe people, we've lost some of it. I think many people like me never learned it. I
Mm-hmm.
I never learned what a sacramental was. I never learned, these promises and these devotions, these beautiful devotions of our church. I never learned them. So maybe that, and one of the reasons I wanted to write this book, not maybe, but definitely, was I'm hoping that those people who love the Catholic Church, but feel like maybe they're not being fed, or they don't feel like it offers them enough, maybe they too will have this discovery like I did, that this supernatural God, who's unfathomable, who loves us incredibly, has also provided us a treasure trove for us to dive into. And that's, our legacy, right? Our heirlooms from God are these beautiful sacramentals.
Beautiful heirlooms from God. Love that. Where can people pre-order your book as of this recording? Where can they pre-order the book or get a copy for themselves?
I think the easiest way is just to go to my website, reconciledtoyou.com. Of course, it's you can always find these anywhere you buy books online. And I always, first and foremost, recommend and encourage people to go to their local Catholic bookstore. If they any bookstore really, especially if it's locally owned, if they don't have it, they can order it. And if you're looking for it, probably somebody else is too.
Fantastic. So order local, visit your local Catholic store, or visit the website, which is reconciledtoyou.com, and we'll drop that in the show notes. Allison, it was wonderful to spend time with you. Thank you for opening up the last 10 years of your journey and gift wrapping it into a book to share with the rest of us.
Thank you so much, Dominic. This was a wonderful opportunity to talk about encountering signs of faith.
God bless you, everybody. Get a copy of Allison's book. See you later.